Before his rebirth, Ning Nuan loved him wholeheartedly, obediently and sensible as his wife Huo. When his white Moonlight returned, he did not hesitate to abandon her. Pure body leaving home, miscarriage, family breakdown, depression and death. After being reborn, Ning Nuan felt really foolish. So he swiped his card, bought his own building, and started his own company. Stocks bought randomly grow wildly. The value of a small dilapidated building purchased casually has increased by 20 times. The casual signature of a small scumbag has become the top of the entertainment industry. She is the stock god, she is the real estate tycoon, and she is still the capital tycoon in the entertainment industry. The expert in treasure appreciation is still her. Gradually, Huo Tinghan realized that she was getting richer while he was getting poorer. Real estate tycoon Qin Huan swore to step on her. Don't worry, your bankrupt father just knelt down and begged me for guidance. Master Jianbao's daughter Chen Zhizhi thinks her mind is empty. Don't be busy. Your father just called me for help on the show and asked me to help him distinguish between truth and falsehood. Dad's company goes bankrupt, don't be afraid. There is nothing in the world that cannot be solved by money. Throw money. Today, let's start by throwing 1 billion yuan. The scumbag's property was emptied, and Ning Nuan left the divorce agreement. Let's get divorced now. Huo Tinghan, who was determined to divorce, tore up the agreement and regretted it beyond his reach. Reporter interview. Miss Ning, why are you so successful? Ning Nuan. Without a man in the heart, wealth naturally becomes. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm so foolish. After rebirth, Ning Nuan finally regained consciousness. Love Huo Tinghan for 10 years, get married for 3 years, and work as a cow and horse for him. With a word from his beloved, he didn't hesitate to leave her and her unborn child and return to Bai Yueguang's side. She left her home with a clean body, had an abortion, her father committed suicide, and family upheavals followed one after another. She died of depression at the age of 29. Unexpectedly, she was reborn 5 years ago when Huo Tinghan went to attend Qin Huan's birthday, which was also her birthday. This time, she woke up and wanted to swipe his card, start her own business, protect the people who love her, and get the man off the side. Huo Tinghan returned and saw that the room was very dark. He asked, "Why don't you turn on the lights?" As the words fell, he had already turned on the light. He habitually raised his hand when he entered, waiting for her to come and take off his clothes. Ning Nuan lay in bed, indifferent. She usually prepares meals, and as soon as he enters the house, she takes off his coat by sticking it on to him, helps him put away his things, puts bath water in his hands, and prepares clean pajamas, so that he can feel her gentle love when he enters the house. Huo Tinghan saw that she had no response and called out to her lightly, "Ning Nuan, come over." Ning Nuan casually flipped over and turned her back to him, leaving him with a seductive silhouette. "Take it off." The man leaned up from behind, hugged her, and whispered in her ear, tempting her to indulge in the gentle countryside he had created. The man's hand brushed past her smooth back, and Ning Nuan's spine stiffened for a moment. The scene she once looked forward to, waiting for his favor like a princess every day, trying to seduce him and please him in different ways. And he only thinks of her when he's in heat. I attended Qin Huan's birthday, but he forgot that today was also her birthday. He didn't mention it at all since he entered the door. It doesn't matter anymore, she doesn't care anymore. What's wrong? Huo Tinghan noticed something was wrong with her. It's inconvenient. No, Ning Nuan moved away from his hand resting on his waist. The man's heavy breath swept past her ear, filled with lustful longing. I don't want to do it. Ning Nuan lacks interest. Huo Tinghan continued to caress her waist. I haven't done it for several days, don't you want it? A few days ago, I got angry and said I did too little. Ning Nuan remained silent, while Huo Tinghan continued with his hand, knowing that she was speaking ill and playing with a childish temper. The man's warm palm gripped her waist, and a passionate kiss from the scorching heat struck. "Give it to me," he said passionately when the arrow was on the string and had to be fired. Ning Nuan calmly asked him, "Where did you go today?" "Her body is hot, but her heart is cold." In fact, she knowingly asked, "And he went to see Qin Huan again today?" The desire in Huo Tinghan's eyes faded, and a hint of coldness flashed through his eyes. "Work," he said, "is your job to sleep with your little lover?" Ning Nuan mocked him. Huo Tinghan ignored her question, flipped over and got up from her, put on a home outfit, and said, "I'm tired, go and give me some bath water." As usual, when he put on his clothes, he could look like a dog and not see the warmth in bed. Look, she's just spoiled him. She has to use the bath water and even take off his clothes. She's treating herself like an emperor. After spoiling her little lover, she still wants her legitimate wife to give him a bath. Do you have no hands on your own, or can't you take care of yourself in life? She served him, but he went to serve other women like she did. From now on, she will no longer serve, whoever loves to serve will serve. Huo Tinghan sat by the bed without taking her emotions to heart. "I'm really tired from work, and my temper has to be divided. I don't have the heart to comfort you now," he said. "I'm not interested in being petty with you either, I just feel disgusted by the way you lie." Her emotions are real, and Huo Tinghan's fatigue is also real. Seeing Ning Nuan unwilling to let go, Huo Tinghan's tired face showed a hint of warmth and anger. "Are you following me?" Ning Nuan used to be idle, thinking about him every day, but he didn't dare to follow him for fear of angering him. "I used to be afraid, but now I'm not interested in following him." "No, when others see it, just say a word to me." Ning Nuan pulled the blanket and wrapped herself tightly. "Ning Nuan, marrying me was your voluntary choice. Don't look like I have wronged you." Since she already knew, Huo Tinghan didn't even bother to hide. "You always knew that the person I loved was her. I used to be able to come here peacefully, but now why bother?" Ning Nuan replied to him, "Because she's back now, she's threatening my position. It also threatened her and Huo Tinghan's joint property. She can't affect you anything." Huo Tinghan thought she was just worried that Qin Huan's return would threaten her position as Mrs. Huo. "She also affected my mood." Ning Nuan looked at the shirt he had thrown on the bedside table, with the woman's lipstick residue still on the collar. "The cheating husband appeared in front of me with evidence of his infidelity, and I looked at him with frustration. Ning Nuan, I have nothing to do with her. She is usually very well behaved and gentle and sensible. Today, she did make him feel a bit mischievous." "Don't make trouble for no reason, I don't have time to coax you," she said, "but you have time to coax her," Ning Nuan choked. "Don't make a fuss, go and give me some bath water. I'll talk about anything tomorrow." Huo Tinghan didn't care about her emotions and didn't want to argue about such a small matter for a long time. "Shit." Ning Nuan sneered and said, "Go find your little lover and let her serve you. Don't bother me." "Ning Nuan." Huo Tinghan's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. "I raised you deliciously, allowing you to have money to eat, drink, and have fun with those wealthy ladies. I don't require you to work or earn money, I just hope that when you come home, the food is hot, the shower water is hot, the clothes are ironed, and you are obedient and sensible. It's not like today, getting angry inexplicably. I have to coax you, I'm very tired." He only gets angry when it comes to Qin Huan, this is the man she can't let go of until she dies. She feels really sad about herself. If you're tired, let the things in your pants rest for a while. You've been drained of essence by that fox spirit, so let her take care of you and rest. What kind of injustice do you call coming to me? Ning Nuan, where is your usual tutor? Huo Tinghan stared at her, his gaze like that of a stranger, as if he had never known her before. The cheating man has no right to ask me for tutoring. Ning Nuan lifted the blanket and got up from bed. Having an affair. Huo Tinghan felt that she was really confused, and she could speak such angry words. She picked up his shirt on the shelf with disdain and smashed it onto him. Next time, I'll wash it clean before entering the door. Don't dirty my eyes, she said. Huo Tinghan was hit in the eye by a button, and he frowned. Ning Nuan. Chapter 2. Swipe his card and buy your own building. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By the way, wash yourself clean and don't dirty my bed. She ignored his incredulous gaze and pushed him out of the room. She felt nauseous and panicked when she smelled the smell on him. Today, I'll just say these damn things when you're angry and confused. Tonight, reflect on yourself. Huo Tinghan didn't finish his words, and all the dirty clothes he took off hit his face. His face turned completely black. Bang. The door closed, and Huo Tinghan was locked outside by her. He heard the sound of the door being locked inside. Doodle doodle. Huo Tinghan's phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, his anger suddenly subsided and his speech became much gentler. What's going on? After Ning Nuan closed the door, she didn't leave. Instead, she leaned against the door and heard Huo Tinghan's attitude soften. His patience with Qin Huan was her eternal luxury in her previous life. He no longer responded coldly, but spoke softly and sweetly. Okay, I'll come over. There was no movement outside the door, and Ning Nuan knew that he had gone to find his crush again. As long as Qin Huan found him, he was always available. When he found him himself, he never had time. She has been holding back for a lifetime, considering him for a lifetime, and this time she always wants to make herself feel a little comfortable. He accompanies his lover, so let the money accompany her. Ning Nuan took a look at the stock market, selected several internet entertainment companies, and directly bought 1 million yuan. These internet companies will become giants in the internet entertainment industry in just 5 years. In recent years, she may not have money, but in the future, she will definitely be able to live without worries about food and clothing. After spending the money, she felt that buying stocks could no longer meet her needs, and Huo Tinghan was so wealthy that spending 1 million wouldn't hurt him at all. She felt that she needed to buy a few more buildings for leisure. She remembers that in just 5 years, Jianbao urban area was developed into the second commercial center of Yancheng, where housing prices rose from an average of 10,000 to over 200,000 yuan. Ning Nuan contacted the real estate manager of Jianbao Development Zone. The next morning, Ning Nuan went to see the buildings. At first glance, the manager thought she was a wealthy person, so he was particularly polite to her. Miss Ning, take a look. What are your requirements for the layout? What is the budget? How many square meters is it? Ning Nuan walked around the community and everyone went in to take a look. Everything is pretty good, she said. Miss Ning, do you live by yourself? Do you have any children at home? Child. It was originally there. Her heart was suddenly pulled and it hurt a lot. My eyes suddenly became slightly damp. Miss Ning, if you don't have a budget, I won't be able to recommend a house to you. Chen suddenly neglected her, thinking that she was just casually looking for people to see and play with. Besides, I hope Miss Ning is sincere in buying a house. After all, my time is precious. At this point in time, I may have already sold a house. Ning Nuan wiped away her tears, suppressed her emotions, and pointed to the southernmost building with the best lighting. I want this building, she said. She wants to swipe his card and buy her own building. Chen Zhizhi was overjoyed and said, which apartment in this building? All. What? Chen looked at her in terror, as if he had heard something terrifying. Ning Nuan nodded and said, let's go over and sign the contract now. Okay. Mom, hey. Encountered parents of food and clothing. Chen couldn't describe his shock. Today, he thought he had met a wealthy lady to entertain himself, but he didn't expect it to be a living father. Drip. Swipe your card. Drip. I changed a card and continued to swipe. Drip. Change again. I can't finish it at all. Ning Nuan listened to the beep sound of the card swiping machine and felt much happier. She used to be so brainwashed that she refused to spend Huo Tinghan's money. Now I realize how happy a scumbag's money is. Upon hearing this, Mr. Jiang, the developer, didn't rush to adjust his hairstyle. He hurriedly ran over wearing a pair of shorts and personally came to entertain the living father who had bought a building. Miss Ning, are you tired? Do you want to take a break before brushing? Mr. Jiang gave the female employee a wink. If you don't take good care of this living father, these employees really have no vision. The female employee immediately came over to pinch Ning Nuan's shoulder and said, Miss Ning, if we're tired, we can take a break. I have someone book a restaurant, and we can continue after dinner. I'm not hungry. Spending money makes me hungry, keep going. Ning Nuan had just calculated the money and said to the boss, I hope you can clear all the tenants of this building within this month. I need to renovate the building first and give me a reply tomorrow. Ensure the completion of the tasks assigned by Miss Ning. The boss personally promised. After buying a building, Ning Nuan felt that it was still early and lonely to go home. It was better to go out and continue playing. Having been honest all her life, she suddenly wanted to experience the life of Huo Tinghan's family where the red flag never falls and the colorful flag flutters outside. So she took the money and went to the largest club in Yancheng. On the other hand, Huo Tinghan's phone kept shaking, and he received a message last night that Ning Nuan had spent 1 million yuan. It's just 1 million yuan, it's just a matter of the blink of an eye. She feels angry in her heart, so it's better to spend some money to calm down, so as not to put on a bad face in front of him and make him upset. The information just now should be about the expenses she spent on buying things. If there's not much money left, she can go with her if she's happy. Huo Tinghan casually turned off his phone. Tinghan, what's wrong? Qin Huan asked him, did she send the message? She was probing Huo Tinghan with caution, did she misunderstand? Should I help you make a phone call and explain to her? She rarely spends money recklessly and doesn't speak harshly towards him. She was so angry last night. Did she really misunderstand that he had an affair? Unexpectedly, Huo Tinghan gave up the idea of her attitude last night. Explain what, she is just too idle. She has nothing to do. I'm sorry, my emotions have been unstable these past few days. Whenever I think of him getting married today, I can't help but want to die. Qin Huan's eyes turned red and she felt very guilty. I only have you by my side, so I can only call you. Huo Tinghan saw the bloodstains on her wrist and comforted her softly, I know, I will accompany you, forget him with you, and start a new life. Tinghan, you will never leave me, will you? A cold and indifferent face suddenly appeared in Huo Tinghan's mind, and the words turned into this sentence. Don't think so much. He hesitated. Qin Huan's heart was throbbing with pain, and when it came to his own affairs, he said he never hesitated, Tinghan. The phone vibrates continuously, and consumer information keeps popping up. Tianming Culture Company, Limited, with a consumption of 3 million yuan. Happiness Real Estate consumes 80 million yuan. LV Yancheng Store, with a consumption of 3 million. The last consumption record is Moby Dick Club, with a consumption of 5 million. Huo Tinghan frowned and took out his phone, ready to turn off the sound. Just as he was about to turn off the sound, the last consumption message popped up and caught his attention. Moby Dick Club, 5 million. Ning Nuan is crazy. Chapter 3. Ning Nuan, don't tramp yourself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huo Tinghan continued to row down and saw that she had bought a building in Jianbao district. He only frowned slightly and did not continue to look down. His gaze finally stopped at the White Whale Club. The White Whale Club is the largest wealthy woman's Shaojin cave in Yancheng. She dares to go to that place behind his back. Qin Huan saw his face look so ugly for the first time. Tinghan, what's wrong? Ning Nuan. Huo Tinghan gritted his teeth and gnashed his teeth. Do you think this will catch his attention? What's wrong with her? Qin Huan's heart pounded when she mentioned Ning Nuan. After returning to China, she gradually discovered that Huo Tinghan had some feelings for Ning Nuan that she shouldn't have had. Every time he is mentioned, Huo Tinghan always hesitates. What should I do? Huo Tinghan should always be her, should always be guarding her side, and should be the knight she can call upon. Doodle doodle. Consumer information has popped up again. The latest two are the Moby Dick Club, with a consumption of 2 million. Huo Tinghan couldn't bear it anymore. I've already called your parents and asked them to accompany you for now. I have something else to attend to, and I'll be with you when I finish dealing with other things. Tinghan. Qin Huan refused to let him go and hugged his arm. Are you going to leave me alone to find her? Huo Tinghan couldn't bear to see Qin Huan pleading in his eyes, but Ning Nuan had no intention of stopping. The consumption information of Ning Nuan in the club kept coming from his phone, and the amount was increasing. With such a large amount of credit, it's impossible to just invite those men to accompany us. There will definitely be other projects. Ning Nuan wants to go out and seek refuge with a wild man, unless he dies. The vibration of consumption information came from his phone again, and every time the consumption information in the club popped up, his anger escalated. Ning Nuan. She's looking for death. A normal man wouldn't tolerate his wife going to that place for leisure. Huo Tinghan is a man, and whether he loves Ning Nuan or not, he can't tolerate Ning Nuan going out to find a man. Xiaohuan, your family will be here soon. I need to go back first and come back to see you later. Be good. He gently comforted her and took his coat before leaving. Tinghan. Qin Huan called him, but he didn't react at all, not even looking back. Ning Nuan has seriously affected Huo Tinghan, and just seeing her news, he became very chaotic. Bitch. Qin Huan swept off the glass cups on the coffee table, and the glass shards scattered all over the ground. No one can take Huo Tinghan away, no one can. She won't let any slut steal her things again. White Whale Club. To be honest, Ning Nuan experienced the feeling of being served for the first time. No wonder Huo Tinghan enjoys his goodness and worries about his love for Qin Huan for the rest of his life. Physical and psychological happiness can be separated. Sister, is this comfortable? The delicate man pinched Ning Nuan's shoulder. How about your strength? It's pretty good. Ning Nuan was happy and gave him a little tip. Another handsome man was envious and worked even harder. He peeled the grapes for her and said, Sister, have a grape. Ning Nuan nodded, feeling that the handsome man was well served and had never enjoyed such treatment in his life. Sister, I'm not bad either, you can't be biased. The 8-pack abs man who pinched her leg became jealous and snorted, deliberately increasing the strength in his hand. Don't be angry, they're all my little treasures, they're all great. Ning Nuan enjoys them being jealous of her and transfers money to him as soon as she's happy. No wonder Huo Tinghan likes to be sandwiched between two women. He just enjoys the feeling of two women vying for him. Bang, the door was kicked open. The people inside were startled. It's Huo Tinghan, his face is frozen with cold ice. Ning Nuan. Huo Tinghan's voice was not loud, but Ning Nuan could hear the anger he was eager to kill. He looked at the group of men next to Ning Nuan, unable to believe his own eyes. Ning Nuan has always been clean and self-centered, never coming to such a dirty and filthy place. Today, not only did she come, but she also ordered a bunch of men. He stood straight in front of Ning Nuan when he entered the door, his face tightly taut, his eyes filled with sharp knives, staring fiercely at the men who were feeding Ning Nuan's back. Ning Nuan was not surprised to see Huo Tinghan coming over. He should have seen a consumer place, so he came over. He used to be hard to find, but now he comes uninvited. Ning Nuan thought to herself, why hadn't she thought of such a way to stimulate him to roll back from Qin Huan before? Sister, who is this? Huo Tinghan is too scary, and Ning Nuan can feel that the men around him are afraid of him. She smiled faintly and said, it's my cheating husband. He should have just returned from his lover and is still warm. Old man, husband. The person next to him was so frightened that he dared not speak out. The movements of pinching his shoulder and pounding his back by Ning Nuan were not in a state of mind. Ning Nuan paid no attention to Huo Tinghan. The strength just now was not good, points will be deducted. She knew that Huo Tinghan had scared people and comforted them, don't be afraid. I agree that he will take care of the mistress outside, and he also agrees that I will come to you for leisure. There are many people in this circle who enjoy themselves, and many couples play their own games without disturbing each other, so they feel more at ease. Ning Nuan ignored Huo Tinghan's malicious gaze and looked at him, inviting him kindly. Everyone has come, so don't pretend to be serious. Let's play together. She kindly said, I'll treat you. If you don't want to die, get out. Huo Tinghan, who had been silent since entering, burst out and looked coldly at the man next to Ning Nuan. Sorry, sister, please handle your family matters first before calling us. They were worried that it would harm themselves, so they ran out without even having time to take their things. Fortunately, they kindly closed the door for Ning Nuan and Huo Tinghan. Everyone left, and Huo Tinghan's patience reached its limit. He looked coldly at Ning Nuan and said, do you know what you're doing? I know. Ning Nuan smiled. Huo Tinghan pulled her up from the sofa and pinched her chin. Are you happy to be so self-deprecating? How could this be a violation of oneself? It's clearly about enjoying the present. Ning Nuan thought he was really funny. Huo Tinghan took the wine from the table and splashed it on her face. He was splashed with alcohol on his face, and his makeup was also worn out. Looking at Ning Nuan, who was in a disheveled state, his eyes were cold. Are you sober now? Ning Nuan was clear-headed, and when she was splashed with alcohol with ice cubes on her face, she became even more clear-headed. Wow! She also poured a glass of wine onto his face from the table. Come and not be disrespectful. Huo Tinghan's face became even more gloomy. Ning Nuan raised her hand and wiped the alcohol off her face. I just want to tell you, I'm very clear-headed, she said, clear-headed. Huo Tinghan bent her body over and grabbed her waist from behind. Coming to this place to hang out, is this your clarity? You are a self-disciplined person who never gets involved in these unclean circles. Aren't you doing this just to catch my attention? You overthink it, I just suddenly feel that this kind of life is also quite good. Ning Nuan continued, today I came to experience your happiness as one person, and suddenly I can understand why you like to be sandwiched between me and Qin Huan so much, because you enjoy two women competing for you and being jealous. Huo Tinghan laughed at her foolishness and said, Ning Nuan, you should be better behaved and more likable. It's annoying to see you so much now. Huo Tinghan, let me tell you, the well-behaved and sensible Ning Nuan has already died. Huo Tinghan's body paused slightly, and soon he returned to normal, without any concern for the warmth. It's okay, she will come back. Huo Tinghan suddenly softened and whispered in her ear, like a demon whispering. No way. I helped you find it back. The man's hand grabbed her waist, his knee pressed against her legs, and he hugged her from behind. In a shameful posture, he pressed her against the coffee table where the wine and fruit plates were placed from behind. Chapter 4, I hope you learn well. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The man's hot kiss followed and fell behind her ear. A familiar feeling struck, Ning Nuan was both angry and ashamed. Huo Tinghan, dare you? Isn't that why you've been tinkering around these past few days? Huo Tinghan's strength intensified. Don't touch me with the hands of that slut Qin Huan, I feel nauseous. Ning Nuan was pressed on the sofa, with her back to him, feeling a deep sense of powerlessness. Why do you care about her so much? Huo Tinghan had already said that Qin Huan would not affect Ning Nuan. She stole my husband and made me the biggest joke in Yancheng. Why can't I care about her? Ning Nuan sneered. So, doing these foolish things these days is just to protest. Huo Tinghan didn't let go of her, but continued to kiss her back. Ning Nuan's back is very sensitive. Every time Huo Tinghan touches her, she will feel limp all over. It's not a protest, it's to make myself feel more comfortable. Ning Nuan retorted, why do you have the ability to find both sides, and I have to be waiting for you at all times? Huo Tinghan's movements paused and he said, did the days before feel uncomfortable? You played cards and planted flowers with those wealthy ladies all day at home, and never had to worry about things in the mall. You used to be able to accept it, but why can't you accept it now? I have never accepted it before. I used to accept it because I loved you, but now I don't love it anymore. Is that okay? No more love. This sentence was particularly harsh. She loved him so much that she suddenly said she didn't love him anymore. Who would believe it? Still not obedient. Huo Tinghan continued his hand movements, wanting her to obediently admit her mistake and submit. If you dare to touch me, I will report to the police and accuse you of marital rape. Huo Tinghan seems to have heard something ridiculous, marital rape. Huo Tinghan, are you cheap? When I used to wait for you in bed, you were busy accompanying Qin Huan. Now I don't need you anymore. You have to be reluctant to part ways and use strength. Is what you can't get always the best? Ning Nuan's mouth showed no mercy at all. He has his pride, and she has said everything for this reason. If he were to be strong again, he wouldn't be Huo Tinghan. Why, Qin Huan didn't take care of you comfortably. Are you still coming to flirt with me? Ning Nuan, don't mention her about our relationship. You dare to do it, don't you dare to admit it. Ning Nuan sneered. Ning Nuan, don't provoke me, it's not good for you. Huo Tinghan continued to caress her waist, as she was pressed onto the sofa and couldn't move at all. She was worried that Huo Tinghan would really go crazy, so she went into heat here and did something embarrassing to her. Do you dare to come here again in the future? Huo Tinghan's hand movements had already stopped, waiting for her to apologize and beg for mercy. Why don't I dare to come? From now on, I will come every day and night. Ning Nuan suddenly rebelled. It seems that you are really not good at learning. Huo Tinghan's expression was cold. Thinking that she had just stumbled into a pile of men, he felt uncomfortable and wished he could tear off her clothes now to let her know who her man was. He's not dead yet. I'm not coming. I'm not coming. Ning Nuan was shocked, she was really worried that he might be acting recklessly. Moreover, Huo Tinghan has just returned from Qin Huan, and she is full of the perfume smell of that bitch. She can't stand it. Sharing a man with another woman is even more painful for her than dying. Huo Ting snorted coldly and withdrew from her body. Look, you have no other choice but to be obedient, he said. The raging anger he carried gradually subsided as she admitted her mistake. I'm not looking down because I'm afraid of you, Ning Nuan said as she got up from the sofa and twisted her waist a moment ago. She carefully turned around. She looked at Huo Tinghan and said, I just don't want to enjoy the same man as other women, I feel nauseous. Huo Tinghan clenched his palm and suppressed his anger. Ning Nuan, I hope you can hold on to your pride for a little longer today, and don't try your best to beg me for you in a few days. She tidied up her clothes a little and pulled out her shirt neatly. Don't worry, I won't do it. In the past, Ning Nuan would beg and seduce him without dignity, but now Ning Nuan cannot. It's best to remember what you said yourself. Ning Nuan tidied up her clothes, thinking that Huo Tinghan had gone crazy just now. She felt lingering palpitations. Due to the previous turmoil, her short skirt had reached the base of her thighs, revealing her white thighs. Ning Nuan is usually quite conservative, and her skirt will never exceed her knees. Huo Tinghan saw that she was wearing a slim-fitting short skirt that covered her hips today, and her eyes were slightly fixed. He took off his coat and threw it onto her body. Ning Nuan, don't try anything that doesn't fit you, such as a skirt or such a place. He is warning her. I think it's very suitable, I really like it, she said as she pulled on her skirt and swayed in front of him. Forgot the lesson just now. Huo Ting sneered coldly. Ning Nuan snorted coldly and knew he was threatening her. Coming out of the private room, several young men stood in a row, bidding farewell to Ning Nuan's departure. Sister, welcome to visit again. After finishing speaking, he also gave Ning Nuan an eyebrow and an eye. Ning Nuan met his eyebrows and eyes. We have contact information, sister will come back to you. She completely ignored Huo Tinghan by her side. At the door, Ning Nuan reluctantly bid them farewell. Upon hearing this, Huo Tinghan's face became increasingly gloomy. He grabbed her hand and threw her into the car. I'll settle accounts with you when I get home. As soon as she got into the car, the door locked and Huo Tinghan saw her lying leisurely behind, holding the steering wheel with a slight force. At home, Huo Tinghan's patience had reached its limit. He grabbed her arm and threw it onto the sofa. My phone. What? Ning Nuan pretended not to understand. Huo Tinghan grabbed her phone, flipped through the contact information on it, and deleted all those men. He looked at the payment information and found that it was about 100 million. However, he didn't pay much attention and just reminded her, if you like to buy a house in Jianbao district, you can do it. There is no room for appreciation, there is no need to buy such an expensive one. He doesn't care how much money Ning Nuan spent. If it weren't for brushing her in the club, he wouldn't be so angry. It's just a house, she likes to buy it to play with. Ning Nuan's head was a bit dizzy when she was shaken. She paused for a moment before slowly speaking up, I like those few buildings. I'm planning to buy a few more in a couple of days. I didn't expect her to spend so much money on buying a house, but he didn't care much. Ning Nuan now feels at ease and can buy more later. That dilapidated building in Jianbao district is not worth spending so much money on. Ning Nuan, don't do these thankless things just to get angry with me. Although he didn't care about this amount of money, he was worried that Ning Nuan would spend a lot of money on real estate projects in Jianbao district to make fun of him, so he reminded her a few more words. You overthought it, not to get angry, it's purely because I like it there. Of course, Ning Nuan wouldn't say it's for future appreciation. Huo Tinghan felt that she had no brain. If you don't have a brain, you'll just be your idle and wealthy wife at home. If you really want to buy a house, tell me, I'll take you to buy it. What's your own opinion? Ning Nuan didn't buy the same set, it was a building, of course it would cost a lot of money. Yes, in your eyes, besides revolving around you, I am nothing, without a brain, without ability, and can't even control my own husband. So you know you don't have a brain. Huo Tinghan was stimulated by her words, and the anger that had gradually subsided was once again ignited by her attitude. His words were also spoken without intention. However, seeing her arrogant and domineering appearance, he felt that he was not wrong. Ning Nuan rubbed her feet and said, yes, I don't have a brain. I'm not as sharp as your heart. She's more opened-up-minded than me, better at being a mistress than me, more promiscuous than me. She's the best slut. Ning Nuan. Huo Tinghan pinched her chin. Chapter 5. Divorce if you can't stand it. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. There was anger in his eyes, and if she said something bad to Qin Huan, he could remove her chin. You see, just as she said a few words about that slut, he started to get anxious and broke through. What kind of good thing do you think you are? You refuse to let go of Qin Huan, but you are not willing when I go find a man. You eat from the bowl, look at the pot, sway left and right, both sides want it. You are even worse than Qin Huan and disgusting. Huo Ting was initially incredulous, then sarcastically smiled and said, "So you're so unhappy with me. These don't matter, as long as they don't threaten the common property of the couple, you can wash yourself clean after eating, and do whatever you like." Huo Tinghan remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking, "If you can't stand me like this, we'll divorce. You forced us to get married back then." Huo Tinghan first mentioned divorce, and she was scared to death. Later on, she became more and more indulgent towards him, becoming more and more obedient. Revive once again, of course she is not afraid of divorce. But she needs money now, very much. If she doesn't get his money, what kind of divorce? In this life, she wants Huo Tinghan to rot in her hands. After Ning Nuan was reborn, she looked at the time. There was still some time before her father went bankrupt. During this time, she wanted to get enough funds. She couldn't change the outcome of her father's company's accident, and she had enough money to help in the future. According to Huo Tinghan's urinary habits, in the current divorce, Huo Tinghan can only give her a small amount of money to ensure that she has no worries about food and clothing. However, that amount of money is just a drop in the bucket for a bankrupt company. "I'll talk to grandma," Huo Tinghan added. "Divorce?" Ning Nuan sneered, "No way. She wants to show her attitude and make him step back, never mentioning divorce again in the future. When things are over, she will personally present the divorce agreement and make him go." Upon hearing the answer, Huo Tinghan was not surprised. "If you don't want to divorce, just be as calm and obedient as before." "I don't like women who are too troublesome," he continued. "Don't do anything out of line just to get my attention. Doing these things will only make me hate you more." Ning Nuan listened with a smile in his heart. He was really narcissistic and thought he was doing this to attract his attention. Seeing that she had not refuted, Huo Tinghan felt that she had probably been acting around enough, knowing that she was wrong and her attitude had softened a bit. "If you really want to buy a house, let me know in the future. Although this money is not a big deal for me, you cannot spend it recklessly. Houses in Jianbao district are cheap and there is no room for appreciation in the future. Buying them at a high price is a waste of money." Huo Tinghan paused for a moment and said, "Let's forget about this matter today. In the future, it's better to use your brain and not be fooled by others and help them count money. It's not certain who's cheating," Ning Nuan snorted lightly. "How do you know your judgment is right?" "Okay, you're right." Huo Tinghan just didn't want to continue arguing with her. If he retorted a few more words, she would get angry again and chatter a lot. When she loses money in the future, she can have a long memory on her own. Ning Nuan certainly knows that he is just perfunctory about himself. As usual, he said, "I'm hungry." The unhappiness of these 2 days has dissipated, and he is still the same as before. He feels that Ning Nuan will also be the same as before. At this time, Ning Nuan has already stood up and gone to the kitchen. He would also ask him, "What would you like to eat tonight?" As expected, Ning Nuan stood up and asked him, "What would you like to eat tonight?" Huo Tinghan was even more certain that her change in the past 2 days was a temper tantrum. "You know what I love to eat, you see what to do. Then you go eat shit." Huo Tinghan. Ning Nuan got up and went upstairs without looking at him at all. "Get used to it." Huo Tinghan's face turned pale with disbelief as he saw her go upstairs. She seems to be indeed a bit different from before, and he can't say where she's different. Overnight, she seems to have changed a person. Perhaps there is still anger in my heart. Huo Tinghan didn't think much. She didn't want a divorce and was also afraid of angering him, so she wouldn't cause too much trouble. Even if she gets angry, she always has a sense of propriety and knows not to go too far. Returning to the room, Ning Nuan threw his clothes and things out of the bedroom and threw them down the hallway. Huo Tinghan went upstairs and saw that his belongings had been lost all over the ground. His anger, which had just been suppressed, rose again and he said, "Ning Nuan, have you had enough trouble? You smell like a mistress, and I'm worried about my bedroom, so you're going to sleep somewhere else. Ning Nuan kindly suggested to him, also, since you can't let her go, I suggest you move over and sleep with her directly to avoid being called over by her in the middle of the night and disturbing my sleep. What's wrong with you again? Huo Tinghan frowned. Bang! Ning Nuan closed the door and locked it from inside. Don't regret it. The warning sound from Huo Tinghan came from outside the door. Ning Nuan used to be the most unbearable person to sleep with. Even if she had a temper, she would hold on to Huo Tinghan in the middle of the night and refuse to let go. She heard the footsteps of Huo Tinghan walking away, and Ning Nuan felt that she should change the lock in the future to prevent Huo Tinghan from entering and getting in the way. She bought a building today, and she was originally worried about Huo Tinghan pursuing it. Apart from feeling that her brain was not working properly, he didn't care. If it weren't for seeing her club's consumption information that damaged his man's face, he wouldn't have time to take care of her today. It seems that she hasn't spent enough. She flipped through the bank cards in the drawer and thought she could buy another building tomorrow. The next morning, she went to brush up another building with her card, and this time the boss personally welcomed her, so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Manager Chen was waiting next to her, recalling the things she had entrusted to her. Miss Ning, I have already completed the task you asked me to do yesterday. The tenants of that building have already replied, and they will all move out within this month, with only one household, which is quite difficult to deal with. Everyone else can handle it with money, but just one of them has to wait for 2 months. You think of a way. Ning Nuan experienced the feeling of having more money and a stiff body, and spoke with confidence. She used to be a bit upset about it. Okay, Miss Ning, I'll handle it for you as soon as possible. Ning Nuan asked again, what is the name of the remaining household? Qiyu, it seems like an actor, a little scumbag from outside the 18th tier. He just graduated from college and doesn't have much money on him. He shared a small single room with 2 delivery guys. Qiyu. Ning Nuan is very familiar with his name, and even frequently sees his news online, as well as the TV movies he starred in, which are among the top in the entertainment industry. She thought of the news she had seen online about some of his heartbreaking moments before he became famous, such as being squeezed together with a delivery guy to rent a house. Isn't it so coincidental? Is he at home today? Ning Nuan suddenly became excited. At home, Manager Chen said. Take me to take a look. She remembered that her elder brother Ning Nuan was running a film and television company, and later signed with Mu Qiqi, which was why he met her. In the end, he was also defeated by Mu Qiqi and ran away wearing a huge green hat. Since she has been reborn, she will definitely not let her elder brother follow the old path. She already had other plans in mind. Open a film and television company in the name of your older brother, let him take care of her openly, sign a small business that will become popular in the next few years, and earn her a lot of money. Then kick Mu Qiqi out, so that the big brother and Mu Qiqi won't know each other. She would rather invest in this project. Chapter 6. Will not let him follow the old path again. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ning Nuan thought it was a coincidence, but it wasn't until she met Qiyu herself that she was certain. Qiyu, who has just graduated, looks very tender, but his facial features are excellent, with sword eyebrows and starry eyes. His facial shape and features, whether in modern or ancient clothing, are very stunning. However, because life is relatively tight and the attire is not shiny, it is not as eye-catching. The entertainment industry is called Red Qi nurtures people, and this statement is correct. Manager Chen introduced to him, she is the landlord of this building. Seeing Ning Nuan and her group, he may feel embarrassed and apologize to her, I'm sorry, I can't find a friend to share a room with at the moment. I don't have that much money to rent a house alone. Can you give me a 2-month grace period? Qiyu is very humble, even if he becomes popular a few years later, he is still very low-key and strict with his fans. Ning Nuan has a good impression of him, I heard you are an actor. Do you have a company? Qiyu felt quite embarrassed. No, I might be too confused, no one is paying attention to me. I want to sign you, why are you willing to follow me? As soon as Ning Nuan spoke, Qiyu was shocked. He looked at Ning Nuan and guarded her like a thief. What is your company called? I don't have it yet, but once you sign it with me, I'll have it. After all, my older brother is still good at film and television, and she needs to discuss it with him. I'm sorry, I'm not considering signing a company for the time being, Qiyu refused. Even if he was in dire straits, he wouldn't accept the care of a wealthy woman. Are you sure? Ning Nuan looked at his living environment, which was very cramped, with a single room, 3 beds, and daily necessities, very crowded. I don't accept being taken care of by a wealthy woman, Qiyu refused straightforwardly. Ning Nuan suddenly understood why he was so down and out. The young man was too straightforward and lacked some smoothness. You've been overthinking it. My brother and I plan to start a film and television company together. I've been following you for a long time and I've noticed your potential. You'll become the first artist to sign up for our company. Qiyu didn't seem like someone who could start a company like this, and even felt distrust of her, but she didn't refuse to die. Let's talk about it after you start the company, he said, starting a company. Okay, you wait for my message. Ning Nuan asked for his phone number, and Qiyu politely wrote a random number for her. He didn't have time to accompany these wealthy women who came to play in the entertainment industry. She knew the number was fake and did not expose it. She is now his landlord, and it's easy to get his number. Miss Ning is really impressed by her involvement in the entertainment industry. At first, the boss thought she was a wealthy woman with a lot of money and nothing to do, but she didn't expect to even venture into the entertainment industry. I'm not very familiar with the entertainment industry, Ning Nuan smiled. Do you still want to sign the scumbag just now? Rich, capricious, Ning Nuan said. Boss. Manager Chen. Ning Nuan signed the house contract with them and went to find Big Brother. Seeing Ning Nuan, Ning Hezhou feels that the world is a bit mystical. When he arrived at the office, Ning Hezhou moved a chair for Ning Nuan and let out a cold snort. I've been circling around men all year. Today, I've come to see you when you have time. It's really rare. The man is wearing a gray suit, with a broad figure, tough facial features, rough and wild, and a strong masculine vibe. This hang is loved by those who like it, but disliked by those who think it's fierce. Ning Nuan knew that he and his parents both hated each other for not being strong enough. She hugged Ning Hezhou's arm and said, "Brother, I miss you so much." Ning Hezhou suddenly realized something. Did that bastard Huo Tinghan bully you again? No matter when, it's always her family who cares about her. Big Brother is so kind, how could she be willing to disobey him before, how could she be willing to ignore him? He didn't bully me. Ning Nuan leaned against his shoulder, which was wide and powerful, making her feel at ease. I came to talk to you about starting a company this time. Ning Hezhou was surprised that his sister, who was only focused on men, wanted to talk to him about business. Big Brother, what I mean is. Before Ning Nuan could speak, Ning Hezhou's secretary came in. Mr. Ning, Miss Mu Chichi is still waiting for you in the tea room. It's not good if you suddenly leave someone there. Mu Chichi. Betraying him after catching up with his older brother left him feeling devastated. Okay, I'll go right over. Ning Hezhou touched Ning Nuan's head. We'll talk when I come back. I haven't finished talking with Mu Chichi yet. Ning Nuan remembered that Big Brother was going to start a company, and Mu Chichi was the first artist he signed with high traffic, so today should be when they talked about signing. She wants to stop her big brother and absolutely cannot let her sign Mu Chichi. Brother. Seeing Ning Nuan's excitement, the elder brother patiently asked her, what's wrong? Are you going to sign Mu Chichi as the first artist in the company? Brother, Mu Chichi is not good. Her acting skills have been declining day by day for 10 years, and she often bullies her peers. Even if she becomes famous in the future, it will still be a thunderbolt. She is not in trouble now, just because she is not hot enough, and her demands have always been strict. The company is just starting and doesn't have so much funds. It's better to sign some promising seed players. I recently noticed a newcomer, Chiyu, and I would like you to come forward and sign him. I will provide you with some more lists in the future, but the most important person at the moment is him. Believe me, he will soon become a pillar of our company. Ning Nuan talked incessantly about her plan and even said a bunch of bad things about Mu Qiqi. Ning Hezhou looked at Ning Nuan with exploration. Ning Nuan continued to finish her plan, which surprised Ning Hezhou. I'll consider it and let you know when it's confirmed. Ning Hezhou didn't understand why Ning Nuan didn't want Mu Qiqi so much, and he didn't want to be impulsive either. After all, Ning Nuan has been a full-time housewife for so long, and she has long been deaf to business. Ning Nuan gave Ning Hezhou a card with 60 million yuan in it. I know you don't have enough funds, so I prepared this money for you as my investment capital. You will be the owner of the new company in the future. You are in charge, and I will act behind the scenes. Don't let anyone know that I am the owner of this company. After all, Ning Hezhou is wandering in the mall. Knowing her meaning, she sighed, Nuan, you really have a long mind. Ning Nuan remembered something. Remember to remind Dad when you go home to be careful with Qin real estate and not to give up all of your secrets. After her rebirth, her father had already cooperated with Qin real estate, and in the future, she could only act according to the situation. What's wrong with Qin real estate? Ning Hezhou thought she was strange. I can't say clearly for a moment, Dad, just listen to you and remind him. Ning Nuan cannot say that Qin real estate will have problems in the future. After all, at this time, Qin real estate has brought profits to Dad's company. My parents may say they don't care about you, but in reality, they have always been worried about you. If you have time, come home with me to see my parents. Ning Nuan nodded, indicating that she would return home when she had dealt with the matter at hand. Mr. Ning, Mu Qiqi is still waiting, the secretary reminded Ning Hezhou. Ning Hezhou only then remembered Mu Qiqi, but if he remembered Ning Nuan, he needed time to reconsider. Rather warm than drink congee, I can't resist the temptation. Mu Qiqi looked up and down at Ning Nuan and said, Mr. Ning, you made me wait so long and brought a woman over. What do you mean? Sorry for the long wait, Mr. Ning Hezhou apologized. Ning Nuan sensed her hostility towards her and deliberately grabbed Ning Hezhou's arm. Seeing Ning Nuan's proud expression, Mu Qiqi looked down upon the woman who couldn't see her position clearly. It's really sad that Ning Hezhou had to cooperate with her in the future and still had to protect herself. She pointed to Ning Nuan and said, I don't like other women around when we talk about cooperation. Ning Nuan smiled and pulled closer, Brother Hezhou, she is Mu Qiqi. Indeed, her temper is harder than her acting skills. Ning Hezhou. Mu Qiqi's face was gloomy. It turns out that Ning always likes the tea flavor in this tea. My acting skills over the past 10 years are not as impressive as hers. Ning he heard Mu Qiqi's words with a faint smile on his lips, but his eyes had already turned cold. It turns out that Miss Mu has always known her acting skills are bad, he said. Ning Nuan looked at her with a cheerful smile. Mr. Ning, what do you mean? Mu Qiqi couldn't accept Ning Hezhou, who had just been polite to him, and his attitude changed when he went out and brought a woman back. Miss Mu's request, we cannot meet it. Let's discuss the cooperation later. What? Mu Qiqi was furious. Since Miss Mu doesn't understand, let me be more straightforward. We already have other candidates. Ning Hezhou originally wanted to think about it again, but seeing Mu Qiqi's arrogance, he felt that Nuan was right. This kind of person, if they haven't collapsed, it's just not hot enough. Mu Qiqi was angry and laughed at. It was the first time a man had refused her, saying, "Besides me, I don't believe you can still sign in as a better actor than me. Ning Hezhou, if you refuse me, you will regret it." Ning Nuan smiled at her and said, "I really signed you. Brother Hezhou has fallen into blood mold. Nuan, don't talk nonsense." Ning Hezhou gently patted Ning Nuan's head and apologized to Mu Qiqi. Mu Qiqi became even more angry when she saw Ning Hezhou being so obedient to other women. She wanted Ning Hezhou to beg her in the future. Mu Qiqi grabbed her bag and angrily left. Chapter 7. Remembering Your Married Identity. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Ning Nuan talked to her brother about the new company and decided on the name of the company, New Star Entertainment. After the decision was made, Ning Nuan called Qi Yu and arranged to meet at a coffee shop. "So I'm just behind the scenes, Ning Hezhou is your direct boss." Ning Nuan has explained the situation and believes that he will definitely become popular in the future. "Why do you believe me so much?" "Because you are Qi Yu is the top stream of the future." Ning Nuan's expression paused slightly as she saw Huo Tinghan and Qin Huan walking towards her side across the street. Qin Huan, like in her past life memories, looked soft and weak, sickly, and even looking at her twice would be heartbreaking. Qin Huan suddenly took Huo Tinghan's hand. Ning Nuan withdrew her gaze, everything had nothing to do with her. "Tinghan, do you remember? This is my favorite CAFA, and the first time you confessed to me was here." Qin Huan began to miss the past and also began to regret it. "Tinghan, if it weren't for him, you and I might have been married. I suddenly regretted it. Tinghan, if I say that you have always been in my heart, would you be willing to?" Huo Ting looked absent-mindedly towards the direction of the coffee shop. The woman by the window is wearing a white dress and talking to a youthful and inexperienced boy. During the conversation, when it comes to joy, she also laughs along. Ning Nuan. He thought she was mistaken, it turned out she looked so beautiful in a white dress. She didn't just smile at him, she would smile so beautifully at other men, so bright. Huo Tinghan suddenly felt unhappy in his heart. He had been raising a dog with him for many years. At first, he only wagged his tail at him, but now he wagged his tail at others. There may be a slight sense of difference in my heart. "Tinghan, did you hear what I just said? What did you say earlier?" Huo Ting asked absent-mindedly. Qin Huan was about to repeat what she had just said, but as soon as the words reached her lips, she noticed Huo Tinghan's gaze. Her heart was slightly suffocated, and when she saw the man next to Ning Nuan, she deliberately asked, "The person by the window in the coffee shop seems to be Ning Nuan. The boy next to her is actually good-looking." She looked at Ning Nuan and the man beside her, wanting to see a hint on his face. She has known Huo Tinghan for too long and is very clear about his every move. She could clearly feel that he was very angry, but she was still restraining and pretending not to care. "I didn't expect Ning Nuan to have such a handsome man by his side, and he looked very young. This type of man is now very popular among married women, and it seems that Ning Nuan is no exception." Qin Huan's words fell, and Huo Tinghan's footsteps had already stepped out. He walked in a hurry, and Qin Huan could barely keep up, but still felt a bit embarrassed. "Tinghan, wait for me." When we arrived at the door, Qin Huan took his arm to show weakness. "You walked too fast, I couldn't keep up with you." Ning Nuan heard Qin Huan's voice from a long distance. She pretended not to hear and continued chatting with Qi Yu. "Tinghan, let's go sit next to him." Qin Huan held his hand and passed by Ning Nuan, sitting behind her. This voice can be heard by Ning Nuan, but she has not responded at all. Huo Tinghan felt uneasy in his heart. Whenever she heard his voice, she could recognize him from afar. Today, it may be because she has another man by her side that she directly ignores his existence. He heard Ning Nuan speak recklessly to the boy next to her. "I have been following you for a long time. You are so good looking and have absolute abilities. You will definitely make a name for yourself in the future. After hearing her finish speaking, the young man sitting opposite her smiled and said, "You're the first person to say these things to me." Ning Nuan reassured him that more people would pay attention to him in the future. "Let's talk about it later." "That's all for today," she said. "Miss Ning, thank you." The young man has stars in his eyes, and he has ambition for his future. He believes he can do what Ning Nuan said. Ning Nuan just smiled and casually raised his hand to tidy up his collar. "Even if you're feeling down now, you should take care of yourself," she said. She had already heard the sound of Huo Tinghan gritting his teeth. Those eyes had never left her since entering the door, wishing they could tear her apart. Qi Yu nodded. Ning Nuan stood up to bid farewell to Qi Yu. "You are reluctant to part," Huo Tinghan's voice came from behind, with a chill. He couldn't sit down anymore, and the coffee on the table was tasteless. Ning Nuan ignored him and just took 2 steps. Huo Tinghan grabbed her arm and clenched it tightly. "Ning Nuan." Mingnian only called her by name, but she knew that Huo Tinghan's anger had reached its peak. Qi Yu noticed Huo Tinghan and said, "Who is this?" "Don't care about unimportant people," Ning Nuan smiled at Qi Yu. "You go back first, I'll find you later." "An unimportant person." Huo Tinghan was almost laughed at by her anger. From now on, when he saw him far away, he started wagging his tail, and now he has become an unimportant person. He didn't want to lose his composure in front of outsiders. He endured the discomfort in his heart and waited until Qi Yu left before questioning Ning Nuan. "Who is he? What do you think?" Ning Nuan asked him in reverse. She knew he misunderstood, but she didn't want to explain. "Ning Nuan, did you forget last night's warning?" Huo Tinghan asked her not to collude with dishonest people. "I haven't forgotten," Ning Nuan shrugged. "He's not from the club, he's a serious man, very innocent. I think." She paused and glanced at Qin Huan. "He's even cleaner than you." Huo Tinghan clenched tightly, frowning slightly as he tugged on her arm, causing great pain. "Do you have to protest against me in this self-destructive way?" After listening to his words, Ning Nuan said she didn't quite understand. "I don't know what you're saying. Have you forgotten your married identity?" Huo Tinghan suddenly detested her current appearance. Ning Nuan smiled and said, "Am I married?" "Who did I marry?" "You forced me to marry you." "Who did you say you married? Do you want me to help you remember?" Huo Tinghan pinched her former pain and repeatedly sprinkled salt on her wound. But now Ning Nuan no longer cares, she has also covered up her wounds. "So you haven't forgotten that you're already married, I'm your wife." Ning Nuan sneered, pointing to Qin Huan. "Have you ever thought about being married when you're with her day and night?" Originally, she had always been very concerned. Huo Tinghan was criticized by her, and a different emotion arose in his heart. "I told you, the relationship between me and her is pure and innocent, it's just that you've been imagining it all along." Qin Huan was called out and suddenly apologized to Ning Nuan, saying, "Miss Ning, I had no intention of interfering in your marriage with Tinghan. You misunderstood." Chapter 8. You have your white moonlight, I have my little fresh meat. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Misunderstanding. Holding hands so tightly, she was afraid she wouldn't misunderstand. You are so intimate, not worried that I might misunderstand, but even more worried that I might not misunderstand. Tinghan, since Miss Ning cares so much, you shouldn't come to me again in the future. Qin Huan spoke and clenched Huo Tinghan's hand tightly. TSK, it's really a deep love affair, she has become the stick that hits the mandarin duck. Huo Tinghan instinctively wanted to take her hand away, but when he saw Ning Nuan's somewhat indifferent gaze, he gave up. Ning Nuan, I told you before that she was sick, and you used to understand. Anyway, he just felt that he was not wrong. Ning Nuan glanced at Qin Huan and then at him. As a mistress, how did you have the face to say these things in front of me? She thought Qin Huan was ridiculous. Besides, do you think he really loves you again? He dares to divorce me for you. At the end of the day, he just can't let go of his past obsession. Do you think he truly loves you? If he really loves you, he will divorce me and marry you instead of making you a mistress. Qin Huan was stimulated and clenched Huo Tinghan's arm, his face turning pale. Shut up. Huo Tinghan's eyes were cold and sharp. He remembered Qin Huan's foot being scratched by glass, worried that she might be stimulated. Ning Nuan, if there's any conflict, let's go home and have a good chat. Don't throw a tantrum here, he said. Ning Nuan didn't quite agree with him. As long as I don't want to give up, you'll end up with a bad name and bad words. Your relationship is like the pot of soup ruined by mouse feces. No one will drink it, and everyone will only feel nauseous. Qin Huan's lips turned white and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Xiao Huan. Huo Tinghan supported her body. Ning Nuan, do you have to argue with her as a patient? It's not me arguing with her or you, it's you just arguing with me. Ning Nuan gave way and said, if you're sick, go to the hospital. Why go crazy here? Huo Tinghan stared at her intently, then turned his head to see that Qin Huan was in poor condition and had to leave with him first. Watching Huo Tinghan and Qin Huan leave, Ning Nuan felt sarcastic. She was also severely depressed in her past life, and she didn't see him being so devoted to her. Tinghan, did I say the wrong thing just now? Qin Huan clenched his sleeve. I'm sorry. It's all my fault, it's me who caused you to have a grudge. She trembled all over and tightly grasped Huo Tinghan's hand. Tinghan, it seems like my condition has flared up again. Huo Tinghan hugged her anxiously and comforted her softly. Don't be afraid, I'm here. I'll take you to see a doctor right now. Qin Huan bit her lips and her face turned frighteningly white. But. Ning Nuan. Don't worry about her. Huo Tinghan was anxious and worried that her condition might worsen, so he hugged her and got into the car. Ning Nuan stood still, while Qin Huan lay on the car window, looking at Ning Nuan with tears in her eyes. The man extended one hand and patted Ning Huan's shoulder to relieve her emotional pressure. Retrieving her gaze, Ning Nuan smiled, feeling quite ironic. She sympathizes with Qin Huan's depression, but it has nothing to do with her. Why should she bear these consequences? Huo Tinghan returned in the morning and was about to leave. Be stopped by him. Ning Nuan. Ning Nuan saw his dark circles under his eyes and immediately stayed up late, not sleeping well. She messed with you late last night, didn't she? She asked knowingly. Ning Nuan, you saw it yesterday. She can get sick at any time. Do you think I can really leave her alone? Well, I know you can't leave her alone, and I didn't ask you to leave her, Ning Nuan shrugged nonchalantly. After speaking, she will leave. Where are you going? Huo Tinghan is not used to her indifferent attitude. She has no job and has been away from home all day recently. Huo Tinghan noticed that her temperament has become wild and she is not as gentle and sensible as before. You have your white Moonlight to take care of, and I have my little fresh meat to meet. We don't interfere with each other. Ning Nuan naturally said this sentence. Huo Tinghan suddenly detested her indifferent attitude and said, that one yesterday. It can be not. I am so young and beautiful, and I have a wide range of choices. Ning Nuan recently went out for a walk and gradually discovered her charm. She used to be foolish, hanging from a crooked neck tree and giving up the forest she owned. Huo Tinghan felt a bit uneasy in his heart, and he said coldly, if you continue to act recklessly, you will get divorced. Are you threatening her with divorce again? What are you thinking? I don't want to do it yet, she smiled, a bit mischievous. Huo Tinghan knew that her refusal to divorce was just a means of threatening her. Ning Nuan, there's no next time. Perhaps her resolute refusal to divorce made him feel that she still couldn't bear to part with him and felt a little more comfortable. Ning Nuan thought for a moment, but still wanted to bring back the home court. Of course, if you really want a divorce so much, I'll treat you to my grandmother's birthday. It's already a month since Grandma's birthday, and 1 month is enough for her to do a lot of things and make a lot of money. What are you saying? Huo Tinghan's face completely darkened. He thought about many possibilities, but never thought that the word divorce would come out of Ning Nuan's mouth. Seeing his incredulous gaze, Ning Nuan smiled. She suddenly became able to accurately grasp him. I remember my grandmother's birthday is on the 25th of next month, with only over 30 days left. Just wait a little longer, you've endured it for 3 years. It's not difficult to endure these 30 days anymore, there's no need to be so anxious. After finishing speaking, Ning Nuan turned around and wanted to leave, but Huo Tinghan refused to let her go. Do you know what you're saying? Ning Nuan just watched him smile, waved his hand away when he was stunned, twisted his bag, and went out. Huo Tinghan had never seen such an indifferent smile on Ning Nuan's face. She really doesn't care anymore. Does she really dare to divorce? Huo Tinghan doesn't believe it. Ning Nuan has been clinging to him from school until now, chasing after his butt. Not to mention work, she has not even learned any skills to establish herself in society. Without him, how could she survive? Moreover, she has already fallen out with her family and severed ties with her parents. Who else is willing to talk to her besides him? Divorce is just a matter of her anger. Huo Tinghan's phone rang. He answered the phone and said, "Mom, what's up?" "Is Ning Nuan here?" the woman on the phone asked directly. "She's not here." Upon hearing that Ning Nuan was not around, Jiang Yu first felt disgusted and said, "I must have gone to play cards with those fox friends again. I don't know what to do all day." But soon, she got back to the main topic. "I heard Qin Huan has returned. You've been with Qin Huan lately." Huo Tinghan did not deny it. "What are you talking about? Let me tell you, I don't like Ning Nuan, but I also don't like Qin Huan, that slut. You better keep your distance from her." In addition, Ning Nuan has been married to the Huo family for 3 years, and her stomach has not reacted at all. She is likely a chicken that only knows how to eat and does not lay eggs, wasting food. You leave her, and I have found some good girls for you. See you later. Mom, Ning Nuan can never agree to divorce, otherwise I would have left long ago. I won't wait until now, so please don't get involved. I can't help but take her home tonight. I have something to talk to her about. Let's talk more. Huo Tinghan felt a bit annoyed and hung up the phone. Chapter 9. Ning Nuan, do you dare to cheat? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ning Nuan came out of home to find Ning Hezhou and talked to him about helping Qi Yu take over the script. Ning Hezhou was not in the company, so she went straight to find Qi Yu. The male lead with this IP doesn't have many roles, but his characters are very complex and will be very eye-catching if you figure them out thoroughly. If you turn back and ask Ning Hezhou to help you fight for it, it will be your first step into the entertainment industry. Ning Nuan gave him a new project, and the production team is very new, even the director is a newcomer. It's because it's too new, so the protagonist will choose high-traffic people to participate, but the male lead, Qi Yu, should be able to win it. Qi Yu flipped through the script and said, "Sister, I won't choose. As long as there is a character, I will take it on. As for this character, I will think carefully and strive to win it. You didn't have the chance to choose a script when you used to fight alone, but now with the company's backing, we will help you secure a good role. Also, if you have any favorite characters, you can tell me. I'll ask Ning Hezhou to help you fight for them, and you can work hard yourself. Success is just around the corner." Ning Nuan has provided Ning Hezhou with a top-notch development plan suitable for Qi Yu, and every character will be suitable for him. With normal performance, he will attract a lot of fans. Qi Yu nodded. "I asked Ning Hezhou to enroll you in a training course, and if you have time, you can also go out with your roommates to deliver takeout and pick up some local food. Why are dramas so flashy now? It's because the actors have no life experience, and the screenwriters don't have much experience, so both the plot and the actors' performances are very suspenseful, making people feel embarrassed and prone to cancer. I understand. Qi nodded. The character you are taking on now needs to live in the countryside for a period of time. I have found a family for you, and you need to immerse yourself in their daily life and way of speaking. Ning Nuan gave him the information, and that household is her grandmother's house in the countryside, which means he will have 2 months to live in the countryside. Just find a laborer to go back to grandma. Qi was born into an ordinary family, but he didn't seem so pretentious and readily agreed. Ning Nuan pointed to her car outside and said, "Time waits for no one. I'll take you to see your home for the next 2 months now." Qi wiped his mouth casually, picked up his clothes, and then got up to warm up and walk away. Ning Nuan's grandmother is also from the countryside, and she doesn't want to live in the city, so Ning Nuan thinks of visiting her grandmother in the countryside by the way. In the countryside, Ning Nuan threw his luggage to him. After all, the future is her money tree, and she needs to do it herself. Qi, this young man, is simple and has never lived in the countryside. Whenever he sees things in the countryside, he feels fresh. After a few days of hard work, he will know the hardships of the farmer uncle. When Huo Tinghan called, Ning Nuan was still in the countryside. Mom asked us to go back to our hometown at night. When will you come back? Huo Tinghan asked her. Perhaps today Ning Nuan mentioned the divorce issue, and Huo Tinghan's words have warmed up a lot. Tonight. Ning Nuan looked at Qi who was feeding pigs. "I won't go back." "Nuan, how do you use this grinding wheel?" Qi was pondering the grinding plate for corn flour, but there was no movement for a long time. "Nowadays is the era of mechanization, but my grandmother doesn't like to rely on machinery for everything, so she bought a grinder." Ning Nuan was still on the phone with Huo Tinghan. She got a little further away and said to Qi, "Wait for me, I'll come and teach you." "Where are you?" Huo Tinghan's tone was chilling. Ning Nuan knew he heard Qi's voice and said, "I've said it's just about asking you, so don't worry about me either. What do you want to do if you don't go home at night and still have a room alone with a man?" It can be heard that Huo Tinghan is very angry, and even has the intention of having an affair. Ning Nuan remembered some words he had said to himself before, and now he has returned them to him in their original form. "Huo Tinghan, I don't have much to do with him. You always doubt this and that, and it's boring. If you're free, you can find your friends to drink and talk to your Bai Yueguang. I don't have time to chat with you." "You." Ning Nuan hung up the phone without waiting for him to finish speaking. She admitted that there were elements of retaliation involved. She feels great about this feeling. After a while, Huo Tinghan's phone rang again, and she hung up. At first, she felt that she had retaliated against him and treated him with her own way, but later she really felt annoyed. Suddenly, I could understand that Huo Tinghan used to hang around outside and didn't want to answer her phone. In such a carefree day, who would want to listen to the old man at home nagging? Warm and warm. Grandma calls her. Grandma. Ning Nuan nestled in her arms, feeling the warmth of her family. In her previous life, she chased after Huo Tinghan every day, immersed in sadness every day. Grandma passed away, and she didn't even take a last glance. "The young man you brought is really good. He works hard and this is my grandson and son.In.Law. Grandma particularly admires the vigorous galloping of her body, not only beautiful but also agile in her work." Ning Nuan said it's not true. He just signed an actor from his brother's company, so let's take him to experience rural life. She stood up to help Qi push the mill. Qi was tossed around for a while and was already exhausted. "Sister Nuan, please take care of it first. I need to rest for a while," she said. Ning Nuan also stopped and poured him a glass of water. "Ning Nuan. In the courtyard, the tall figure of the man appeared prominently, his face dark, and there were stars in the countryside. The faint starlight shone on his face, and his gaze was even deeper than the cold pool. Seeing Huo Tinghan appear, she was quite surprised. At this time, he should have accompanied Qin Huan. Why did you come? She was surprised. Huo Tinghan saw Qiyu lying on a rattan chair, watching the stars, and then looked at the water cup in Qiyu's hand. He clenched her collar tightly and brought it to his chest. Ning Nuan, why are you here? Huo Tinghan has become accustomed to her indifference and coldness. He never pays attention to where he has gone or who he is with. It's rare for him to become so angry. It seems that today's incident has stimulated him. Ning Nuan shrugged nonchalantly and said, I used to ask you to accompany me to the countryside to visit my grandmother. If you said you didn't have time, then I could only find someone to accompany me. Apart from you, there are still very few handsome young people willing to accompany me. You dare to cheat. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. That look was as if she had betrayed him. Is this just infidelity? Ning Nuan suddenly realized. Then you spend your days with Qin Huan, a lonely man and a widow. You like her, she likes you. How come it's not considered infidelity? The man seemed to be awakened by a basin of cold water. Huo Tinghan's hand tightly gripping her collar suddenly froze, and his body took a step back in despair. So, are you retaliating against me? Chapter 10. Huo Tinghan is excluded by her. You are listening at novel full.audio. Ning Nuan didn't pay much attention to his anger and comforted him, I'm worried that it's not safe to come to the countryside alone. I found someone to accompany me. He and I are just friends, and our relationship is innocent. Don't make trouble without reason. Treating men in the same way as men is the way to maintain marriage, Ning Nuan suddenly realized. Just like intentionally, every sentence is familiar to Huo Tinghan, and it's all the words he said to Ning Nuan. At this moment, it seemed like a needle had landed on his heart, tingling slightly. Qiyu watched them argue and wisely entered the room. Nuan, I'm going inside to eat. Grandma's words interrupted the eerie atmosphere between the two, and Ning Nuan put on a gentle smile. Grandma, we're here, she said. Grandma saw Huo Tinghan with some confusion and said, Nuan, who is this? After Ning Nuan married Huo Tinghan had never visited her relatives here. He was unwilling to marry Ning Nuan, so he particularly disliked her relatives. It's normal for Grandma not to know him. Are you a warm friend? Grandma asked him. Huo Tinghan hesitated for a moment when facing the old man. He had never met Ning Nuan's relatives, let alone knew that Ning Nuan had a grandmother in the countryside. Grandma saw that Huo Tinghan didn't respond, so she withdrew her gaze and said, It's really impolite. After speaking, Grandma grabbed Ning Nuan's hand and said, Nuan, don't associate with such impolite people in the future. It's better for us, comrade Shao-Chi. Well, Grandma is right, Ning Nuan emphasized her tone. He has always been so impolite, don't worry about him. Huo Tinghan glanced at Ning Nuan and a slightly ugly smile rolled out on his face. Grandma, I'm Huo Tinghan, Nuan's husband, he said. Upon hearing Huo Tinghan's name, Grandma exclaimed, Oh, and said, So it's you who married Nuan. Come in and have dinner. He looks quite pleasing, but his personality is not likable. At the dinner table, Grandma kept serving dishes to Qiyu, ignoring Huo Tinghan throughout. While picking vegetables for Qiyu, he said to her, It's warm and bitter. I hear her mother nagging in my ear every day, and even after getting married, her in-laws don't like her. They treat her like a dog all day, and her husband doesn't stay at home all day. As a warm friend, you must advise her well. Don't take it too hard. There are many men, but I think comrade Shao-Chi is good for you. Qiyu lowered his head to eat and dared not speak. Huo Tinghan met Ning Nuan's family for the first time, and was treated coldly by her family at the dinner table. Here, only he was an outsider, while others laughed and couldn't feel the joyful atmosphere of the whole family. The feeling of being excluded is not pleasant. He doesn't care whether Ning Nuan's family is satisfied with him, anyway he doesn't like Ning Nuan either. Grandma kept ignoring Huo Tinghan and suddenly turned her gaze to him. Grandson-in-law, you've divorced Nuan. Don't delay her. Huo Tinghan's hand picked up the vegetables and they fell back. Grandma, there's a misunderstanding between me and Nuan, he said. Grandma wanted to persuade Ning Nuan again, but she immediately interrupted her and said, Grandma, yes, there was a misunderstanding between him and me, so we shouldn't go to the stage of divorce. Upon hearing Ning Nuan's words, Huo Tinghan sneered in his heart. He did this today to retaliate against him. She is still willing to maintain this marriage, and she cannot bear to part with it. The mention of divorce was just her anger. Ning Nuan didn't want to tear her face off from Huo Tinghan in front of the old man, nor did she want to make Grandma worry, so she made a comeback. Upon hearing that Ning Nuan was so protective of Huo Tinghan, Grandma had no choice but to give up. Her mother was right, Nuan. She was poisoned by Huo Tinghan and was poisoned by Gu, so she will have to live a difficult life in the future. After eating, Ning Nuan dragged Huo Tinghan out and drove him away. Aren't you leaving yet? There's no place for you to live here, she said. Ning Nuan, did you feel better when you saw me being excluded just now? Huo Tinghan remembered being excluded by her family during a meal earlier, and although there were waves in his heart, he also endured them. What makes me feel good? You've only felt it once. Ning Nuan didn't feel good. This is just what your family does to me on a daily basis, and you, like me today, always stand by with a cold eye. Huo Tinghan remembered that every time she went home with him, she would sit quietly in the corner, and Jiang Yu would always blame Ning Nuan for all the mistakes. And she was just like him today, like an outsider, being laughed at by others. In the future, I will pay attention. Huo Tinghan understood her injustice. Come home with me. He certainly won't let Ning Nuan and Qi Yu be alone. Even if he doesn't love her, she is still his wife. As a man, he doesn't allow his wife to mess with men outside. When have you been so motherly? Ning Nuan didn't want to go back. Can't bear to part with him. Huo Tinghan pointed to Qi Yu in the room, who was tidying up his grandmother's dishes. Qi Yu is a young actor, Ning Nuan. If you don't want him to be ruined, you can continue to interact with him. Huo Tinglan's eyes were cold. Never mind, Ning Nuan didn't want to be too quick-witted and ultimately hurt Qi Yu. Besides, Qi Yu is her ace and she will have to rely on her to make money in the future. Let's go home, she softened. When I left, I instructed Qi Yu to take good care of my grandmother. Huo Tinghan saw that Qi Yu had not left, and his heart was filled with doubts about Ning Nuan. However, seeing Ning Nuan being indifferent, he felt it was quite boring. It was probably just that she was bored and found someone to tease him. When she got home, Jiang Yu called Huo Tinghan and said, I asked you to take Ning Nuan home for dinner. What's going on? You can't please touch her, can you? Mom, it's too late. I'll take her back tomorrow. Huo Tinghan hung up the phone and said to Ning Nuan, Mom asked us to go back tomorrow. Ning Nuan nodded and recalled that Jiang Yu asked her to go back to eat with Huo Tinghan to divorce him. The reason was that she had been married for 3 years and her stomach had not yet moved. She felt that she couldn't give birth, so she had to go and find another one for Huo Tinghan. Lying in bed, Huo Tinghan hugged her from behind. In summer, both of them wore very little, and through the thin clothes, she could feel the scorching temperature on Huo Tinghan's body. His kiss fell on her neck, and his hand reached under her pajamas. It's been a long time since I did it, he said. So, what does it matter to her? Huo Tinghan broke her body and hugged her tightly from the front. Her body was tightly pressed against him, and he could feel the heat emanating from his body. The man's kiss fell on her lips like a storm. What was hot and eager was the enthusiasm to integrate her into the body. I haven't visited your family since getting married. I'll accompany you home to see your parents in a couple of days. Huo Tinghan gasped for breath and whispered in her ear, as a gesture of goodwill. Ning Nuan has no feelings. If he really loves her, he will respect her family. After being married for so long, when will he take the initiative to visit her family? I used to be so foolish. Even if I didn't have dignity, I would let Huo Tinghan step on the face of my parents. Is that okay? His voice was deep, not like an inquiry, but more like a lure. She wanted to avoid his kiss, but wherever she avoided, his lips chased after him, constantly tempting her to sink with him. She was forced to make a voice that she felt ashamed of herself. Warm, agreed. He continued to seduce her.